Hello, this is the computer I use as a GNS3 lab server. Let's get started. I used a USB drive and a Windows computer to create the operating system installer. First, I installed an operating system called Ubuntu to the target computer. I used the Ubuntu operating system to optimize server performance. After downloading the ubuntu.iso file, I used Rufus to create a bootable installer. Once completed, I plugged the USB drive into the target computer and accessed the UEFI BIOS. Here I set up the computer to boot from the bootable USB drive created in the previous step. The following are the basic Ubuntu installation steps. I recommend you set up a static IP address for your Ubuntu computer. Instead of getting the IP address from the DHCP server, I set the IP address manually. This is the static IP address I set up for my lab server. You are required to create an administrator account before installation. In this case, I create an account with the username GNS3. Don't forget to enable the OpenSSH server because in the next step you will need it for remote access. After completing the above steps, the installation process begins. You are then required to remove the USB drive from the target computer before restarting. So I finished installing Ubuntu. Next, I install GNS3 on it. From another computer in the local network, I access the target computer using SSH. Before installing GNS3, I update and upgrade Ubuntu. Above are the commands to update and upgrade Ubuntu. Next, I went to the GNS3 homepage and consulted the remote server installation instructions. This is a detailed step-by-step guide, but you are only interested in 3 commands. You follow these steps. You navigate to the temp folder on Ubuntu. Then use the second command to download some scripts files. This is a script file that helps you simplify how to install GNS3 on Ubuntu. Next, I used this file to install GNS3 on Ubuntu. I copied the last command to run the scripts file. You can access the GNS3 server over the internet using netvn, but it requires some additional steps. In this video, I show you how to create a lab server on your local network. I have basically completed the installation of the remote GNS3 server. Next, I show you how to connect to it from a client Windows computer. On my Windows computer, I downloaded the GNS3 installer. After completing the installation, I connected to the remote server. Here you enter the IP address of the GNS3 server that was set up in the previous step. I check the GNS3 server IP address to make sure it is correct. Oh, connection failed. Do you know why? Because I haven't started the GNS3 server yet. So I use the command GNS3 server. Successful connection. Great, I've completed the next task of this video. A lab server like this needs nodes like routers or switches. Next, I added a router to the GNS3 server. You download the router image file from GNS3 and upload it to the lab server. Here I have prepared a Cisco router image file and I upload it to the server following these steps. You upload it, compress it. Then you give it a name or leave it as default. Next, you add some slots. and I have completed adding a new Cisco router device for the lab server. Do you want to have your first lab with a Cisco router? I will create a new lab named Test1. You wait and see if it is the same as the physical device or not. In this lab I have a Cisco router device, a computer to test results. Sorry, I have to restart the GNS3 server to complete the installation. This time I made sure I started the server with the GNS3 server command. Devices connect to each other through interfaces. The computer connects to the router connects to my physical network. I will set up the computer so that it can connect to the internet. Following are the configuration steps on my Cisco router. On the router I use two different interfaces. First I configured the interface to connect to the computer. I created a DHCP server on a Cisco router. It allocates IP addresses via interface 0/1. I create a new subnet. Then I set up the gateway IP address and DNS address. I verified the results on a computer in the lab. The IP address has been assigned to this computer from the DHCP server on the Cisco router. It's time to perform the next configuration task on the Cisco router. I configured the IP address on interface 0/0. This is the interface that connects to my physical network. After completing the IP address configuration on interface 0/0, I created the default route on the router. I went to the computer in the lab and checked the internet connection. Connection failed. I know why. Please continue watching. Because my physical router has not created a static route to the subnet I created on the Cisco router. So on the Netgear router I created a new default route as above. Above are the basic steps to create your own GNS3 server. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As you can see, the internet connection is successful. Good luck.